a few weeks ago, my home lab got hacked, which was very annoying. An attacker was able to make the most of a vulnerability in Umami, which is a web analytics tool that I'm using on my home lab. I have it exposed with Nginx and Cloudflare on the public internet, so I can access it conveniently. And an attacker injected a gambling ad into my dashboard, which looked a bit like this. Not great. After recovering from the digital equivalent of finding a stranger in my living room, I did some digging into what went wrong. Luckily, Docker mostly contained a blast radius, but that's kind of was dumb luck. I definitely was a little bit laxer on my security best practices than I should have been for my home lab, including using a default password for Umami. Also not great. When I did a write-up about my experience, the good people of Reddit rightfully had some things to say about that. Here's just a few. But one consistent piece of advice they had was to check out Tailscale as a potential way of preventing this from happening again. Hi, I'm Hugh. I am a developer advocate, community organizer, and a person interested in all things data and making. Today, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how I use Tailscale to secure my home lab. First, what actually is Tailscale? Tailscale is a mesh VPN, which means unlike with classic VPNs where all of your traffic is routed to a server before it goes to the web, where if that server goes down, your whole workday falls apart. Tailscale is built of individual nodes in a tailnet where each node shares the load of routing traffic, and if one or more nodes are lost, then everything keeps working. Let's check out how easy it is to get started with Tailscale. So I'm over here in the Tailscale website. I'm going to create a new account. So I'm going to sign in with Google, use my personal email. Cool. So I have an account and I want to install Tailscale. So first I'm going to install it on my Mac. So I'm going to click download Tailscale for Mac OS, which takes me to this page. I'm going to download Tailscale. Very quickly downloads. I have the package. Click on that and drag my installer over onto this window so you can see what I'm doing. So, welcome to Tailscale 1.962. Where am I going to install? I'm going to install my hard drive. I'm going to put my password in. Okay, and just like that, Tailscale is installed. I'm going to sign into my Tailscale account. I'm going to connect to the device that I just installed on. And if I hop back over to Tailscale, you'll see the first node in my tailnet is my Mac. Okay, so I've installed Tailscale on my MacBook. That's my first node in my tailnet. But where Tailscale really comes alive is when I start adding multiple nodes, as it is a mesh VPN. So if I jump back to Tailscale in my browser, you'll see that we now have the option to add a second device. I'd like to connect my home lab, which is on Raspberry Pi, so I'm going to select Linux, and this is going to give me the curl command I need to install it on my home lab. I'm going to grab a terminal from another window, and I'm just going to make this bigger so you can see. So I'm already SSH'd into my home lab. Then I'm going to run the install Tailscale command. Cool. And just like that, Tailscale is installed. Then I can grab this command from the end of the Tailscale install log, which is sudo tailscale up, which will start the Tailscale service. I can run that. I'm just going to log in to my Tailscale account with sudo tailscale login. I'm going to grab the authentication URL, hop back over to my browser and visit that. I'm going to sign in to my account. and I'm going to connect my device. And then if I hop back over to Tailscale on my MacBook, you can see that I now have both nodes. If I run the Tailscale set SSH command, I can enable SSH to my home lab from Tailscale. And if I hop back over to the browser, I can now click on my home lab and I can SSH in. And then I have an SSH connection to my home lab. If I want to, I can close the default SSH port now on my home lab, and then only devices in my Tailnet will be able to access my home lab via SSH. My favorite thing about Tailscale though is because of how easy it is to sign up and create an account. It's very easy for friends and family to create a Tailscale account and then to create node devices. It means that I can share things like my media server or personal projects or the admin dashboard for my blog super easily, such that like friends or collaborators can securely access my stuff. And I don't know, I think that's very useful. That's all well and good, but how do I use Tailscale to secure my web analytics dashboard? As I mentioned at the start of the video, I'm using Cloudflare as my DNS provider to route traffic to my Umami dashboard via Nginx. Securing my web analytics dashboard then is as simple as removing the public Cloudflare record and instead routing traffic from Tailscale through Nginx to Umami. That way, only users authenticated within my Tailnet can access my web analytics dashboard. To do this, I'm going to start by enabling two super useful Tailscale features. Magic DNS, which allows me to have my own domain registrar effectively inside my Tailnet, which is super useful. If you've ever tried to run your own DNS at home, you know it's quite fiddly. And I'm going to enable HTTPS, which will mean that Tailscale will use Let's Encrypt to create certificates for devices automatically. Again, something that's very annoying to do manually. Once I've enabled those settings, I can jump back to my home lab and request the cert that we're going to use to make this work. Once I've got my certs, I'm going to copy them into the home lab Docker SSL directory where I'm mounting my certs from to my Docker container for Nginx. And I'm going to, if you'll excuse the Blue Peter of it all, apply an Nginx configuration that I made earlier. I'm then going to update that Nginx configuration to use the new DNS names, which will look a little bit like this. Note that we've got the path to the SSL certificate and keys here that we just copied into the mounted directory, and we have the Tailscale Magic DNS name for this node. That all looks good, so I am going to restart my Nginx. And back on my Mac, you can see that I am disconnected from the Tailnet. So now if I try and run the same curl, it will fail. And if I reconnect to the Tailnet and I run that command again, it'll succeed. So there you go. As simply as that, you can prevent all traffic from outside of your Tailnet from accessing a service inside of it. Thanks for watching. For more videos like this one, click here or wherever I put the clickable links. And maybe I'll make more videos about Tailscale. Who knows?